everyone. My name is LJ Thomas. I'm the host of the show. Thank you so much for joining us today. And today, our purely positive person is Diane Lang. She is an educator, she is an author, and she is a happy life expert. So let's go ahead and get started. Diane, first of all, explain to me what a happy life expert is.
Well, thank you so much for having me today. It's always great to be on a positive show. I love it. So thank you.
You're
So what
welcome.
I technically am is a positive psychologist, which is I study and teach happiness, resiliency, optimism, meaning and purpose in life, and finding your strengths. So, some people will call me a positive life expert or a happy life expert. It's just a nickname for really what we do, which is positive psychology.
Okay. Now, some of our viewers may not know the difference. They may not understand exactly what
Sure.
psychology is. Can you give us a definition of that?
So, positive psychology really is just the newest form of psychology. And when we mean new, we mean the early 80s, but much newer than thinking back to like psychoanalytical kind of therapy. So, again, we're just coming from the other side. We study what works well, what works right, what makes us happy, what's going to make us optimistic instead of pessimistic. How do we bring more meaning or purpose to our lives? How can we use our strengths to really improve our life and to reach, our full potential and be the best person we can be?
Okay. Now, I try to be an optimistic person. Try. So, my thing is if I'm feeling a little down or whatever, I'll get out the crayons and the coloring book or I'll watch cartoons. But I'm a kid at heart. So, that's me. Anyway, what what would you have someone do to help them find their happy place?
Sure. Well, the first thing I have my clients do, and anybody who's listening can really do this, is to ask themselves, how do they define happiness? What does happiness look like for them? What does it feel like? Because it's so different for everybody. Happiness is an individual thing. So you can't just give like a generic term that's going to fit everybody. So I have my clients really think about that question. And then I have them write a list of the top 5 to 10 things that bring them happiness, whatever it is. And, for some of my clients, it takes a few weeks to really fill out that piece of paper with just what brings them happiness because, as we get older and we're so busy with work, school, kids, parents, all of that kind of stuff, we kind of forget about our own happiness, right? We tend to go, oh, I know what makes every kid happy in my family. I know what makes my parents, my spouse, what my boss expects, but we forget about ourselves. So just writing that list can really bring people into a form of awareness of how they define happiness, what it looks like. And then I want them to look at that list, even if they can only get 5 things, but look at that list and then say, does this match my life? Because the next thing is, you can have this great list of what brings you happiness, but if you're not using it and you're not putting those things into your life, then your life's going to feel unbalanced or out of alignment. So,
Oh,
really quick example, I had a client who came to me and said, I don't know what makes me happy. And I had her go home and she wrote the list and she had about 6 things. And the first thing and the top thing was she loves taking a warm bath. She just loves sitting in a bathtub with the candles, reading a magazine, having her bath salts. And it's a really great mindful experience. But when I said to her, when was the last time you took a bath? It was in November too. When she came to me, she said she had to think about it. It took her a while. And then she said, I think the last time I took a bath was sometime this year. So if
wow.
that is the number one thing that brings her happiness and de-stresses her and relaxes her, but she's not doing it, you can see the unbalance. So you want to make sure that your list matches your life. And if it doesn't, then you want to schedule in one happiness activity once a week. So maybe she'll take a bath once a week. If it's taking a walk, maybe you'll take a walk once a week, or if it's making a call to a friend, whatever it is. But really making sure your list matches your life is one of the first things that I have my clients do.
Wow. That's wow. That's interesting. That brings to mind a thought. I picked up my grandson from school last Friday And I asked him how his day was. He's 5 years old, mind you. And he
Aw.
tells me, he says, Grandma, I'm so stressed. I was like, what?
You're like, at 5? What are you
You're
stressed
5 years old and you're stressed. You don't even have a job. You just have school.
about?
But what you're saying really, I understand why he said he was stressed. He was not happy because he had had a day at school where
Right.
things were pretty hectic. You know, he had to deal with some things he wasn't used to dealing with, and that's what made it stress. Now, I don't know, 5 years old, and he's stressed. I don't know what his life is going to be like. But these things, can these things be used with any age? I mean, would I be able to try this with my 5-year-old grandson?
Well, you know what? Your 5-year-old will probably have an easier time because when you're young, life is really about you. Like if you go up to like a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, 7-year-old, and you're like, you know, what's your name? And they'll be like, hi, I'm Charlie, and I love blue. That's my favorite color. I love chicken nuggets. I'm playing Legos. You want to come and join me? Everything's very about them. So they know what makes them happy, and it'd be easier for them to go, you know what would make me happy is I get to play with my Legos and, play my video game, and then you can make sure that they're doing it. He might have had a stressful day because they didn't play the game, or maybe a friend of his didn't want to play, or he didn't have the right lunch. At 5, things that stress them out are real, but they're
Right,
different than what stresses us out.
right.
So you could use it at any age, but I think the younger you are, the more prone you are to know how you define happiness. It's when we get older that we kind of
Lose
forget
it.
or push our happiness away to take care of everybody else.
That's a very interesting point. That makes a whole lot of sense too. Um, it seems to me that everybody is so busy nowadays.
Right,
I mean, we have tons of things to do. And
right,
unfortunately, we live in a world where people think the busier you are, the more important you are. That's
right.
not necessarily the case. If you have tons of things to do, you just have a lot of stuff to do. It doesn't mean you're more important or whatever. You just have a busy life. And that's where prioritization, did I say that right? Anyway, that's where that comes in. But you have to take the time, and find something that makes you happy. Otherwise, you get burnt out,
Yes.
And now, I know that you are an author. Tell me about your latest book. I know you have three
Hmm.
that are in publication right now, but tell me about your latest book.
So my latest book came out about less than a month ago. So it's really new, and it's called Mindfully Happy: Waking Up to Life. And it's a book that's literally about happiness and mindfulness. It's giving you the actual tips and tools to create a more mindful, happy life. So you'll get some tips that are concrete, realistic, that won't change your schedule or it won't cost you a dime to really make your life happier. Well, that's the biggest thing. When you do a lot of workshops and classes or clients, they're like, I don't have any more time. As you said, they feel very busy. And, again, it's that work life balance, especially with
Right.
family. And the next problem is, I don't have any more money, so make this as cheap and convenient as possible. And the thing about my book, which I tried to do, is I kept it very small. It's about 100 pages, but it actually gives you the real tools to use. So you don't have to read all the busy stuff, the fluff, and then go, well, this is great. I understand, but now what do I do? I want you to
Mhm.
leave going, okay, this is what I do. And it gives tools like I just did, how do you define happiness, writing a list, scheduling it in, gives a lot of tips in that kind of format. So thank you for asking about it. I'm very
Oh,
excited to give that information out.
oh, great. Because, there are people like me well, first of all, I'm a reader. But second of all, anything that I can use to make life bearable and better for me, then that's something that I'm very interested in pursuing and checking out. As you know, I had a doctor's appointment this morning. I had to have an infusion, and life is very hectic surrounding that particular event every month. And these kinds of things will help calm me while I'm getting my infusion because I hate needles.
Yeah,
So,
I'm not a fan either. I can relate to that. You know what? Any of us who have any kind of um, illness or injury that is not curable, and I have two illnesses that have no cure, and I'm stuck with them for life as well.
right,
And when you have that, it's very stressful because you have to make changes in your life. and it causes a whole identity shift of who you are and what you're able to do. So the mindfulness and the happiness, and I use it like everything that's in my book. Not only do I use with clients or teaching, but really I honestly use it for myself. And it made a big difference for me. 6 years ago, I found out I had an illness. I basically have third-degree burns in my throat,
Oh,
and
wow.
it's from acid. The way people get like GERD in their stomach, I
Right.
have it in my throat. It's not as common, but it's way worse, and it's precancerous. It's the same thing as when people have it in their esophagus, and it's called Barrett's. I have it
Mhm.
in my throat. So I've had a lot of changes, and I can't eat hardly anything. I'm not allowed. I speak for a living, which produces more acid
Awesome.
because, as you know, I teach college. So I
Right.
have to drink chamomile tea to reduce the burns, which I don't enjoy. And we have to do all these changes, and I don't have to get a needle, but I have to get scoped where they put a camera up my nose into my throat every 6 months.
Not
And that
fun.
is not enjoyable either. But it's not a
No.
needle, but it's definitely not enjoyable. It's very uncomfortable. It's a little scary. And it's things that we have to do. But I've noticed when I started including all these tips and started living more mindful with more consciousness, with more intention, it
Uh-huh.
really made a shift in my life. And now when I go to the doctor, I'm not like, yay, put the scope up my nose. But I'm like, hey, it's not a big deal. It'll be over in 2 minutes, and it'll let me know where I am in my life and what changes I need to make. And I'm sure you have seen this too, is
Yes.
a lot of us from an illness or an injury or trauma, we can have what we call post-traumatic growth,
Yes.
where we actually take the illness, injury, or trauma, learn from it, make the changes, and we end up even happier and we're thriving and doing better because we take what we've been through to help others and we
Right.
use it to be the best person we can be. And that takes some time. You have to go through the healing and the grieving of your whole new identity, and that could take years. But when you get to that point, then you can really thrive and use your information that you've learned to help others, and that can make a really big difference because, as you know, we feel better when we help others. That's why
Mm.
random acts of kindness is such a huge component of happiness. We
Right.
can cultivate happiness just by helping others, being kind to others, showing others gratitude. So in my book I give all different ways you can do this, but using what you've been through or what I've been through can really make a difference in everybody else's life. So, it's great that you're sharing all this and you have this radio show to help others know that they can thrive no matter what they're going through.
Yeah. I can't. I've seen so many people who are just completely lost. You know what I
Right.
mean? That
Yes.
they just are just that they don't know where to go. They can't see anything positive or happy or good or anything, and it breaks my heart to see that.
Yeah.
Because as you stated, I've been dealing with this for 20 something, going on 25 years, and so I'm I've been through that grieving process, and I'm finally at a point where I'm happy, come what may. I'm happy. You know,
Right.
I realize that there's some things I'll be able to change. There's some things that I will not be able to change. But no matter what, I don't let it change how I feel inside. And that happiness is something that I have to make. I can't depend on somebody else to give it to me. I can't wait for validation from someone or something else. I
Right.
have to do that within myself. So it really was interesting to me, when you and I first started talking about all these things that you have and how you help people. And it said to me, wow, this is someone that I really need in my life. I'm
Well,
selfish.
thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm selfish. But it just brings to mind that a person who does as much as you do, all the hats and things that you wear, you teach college. How do you help your students, with these things, these kinds of things? I mean, college is stressful in and of itself.
Right.
But what would you say if a student came to you and they had a problem, they were dealing with a difficult professor or whatever, and they just couldn't get their grades up? What generally would you tell them to kind of help them through that situation?
Well, sometimes it's just really listening. A lot of times it's just being there, knowing they have support, because one of the things, or really actually the number one thing for happiness, is really socialization. And socialization has a few different components to it. So, socialization includes community, which a lot of college students have because you're dorming or you're on a sport or an activity or just the school as a community itself. Then you need some fun and play, which I think most college students know to do. And then the other part is the support. We need to have a support system. And if a student feels that they don't have a support, maybe they're dorming and their family's too far away, maybe their friends are new, they don't know them as well, then just being there and allowing them to know that they have that support system, that I'm there to listen, is sometimes just enough for them. The other part to think about for students, if there's anybody listening between the ages of like 18, 19 to 20, 30, there is what's called the quarter life crisis, which is very similar to midlife crisis. And it's, that shift of what am I going to do? Will I make it? Will I be successful? The fear of failure coming in. And it is very hard because today college is so much money and there's so much competition, and graduate school is a must, and so that adds on. So the students are definitely more stressed out than when I went to college 20 years ago. I mean,
Right.
it was expensive, but not half as expensive, and I knew I'd get a job. There were, jobs were plentiful, and you didn't have that fear that they do now. So just letting them know there's a name for what they're going through, and that, again, it doesn't make it, go away, but it makes them feel like, I'm normal, even though I hate the word normal because there's such a thing, but knowing that other people feel the same way, this is common, and that it does, transition into a new phase where things settle down is a lot of times enough for them to feel better as well. So just making sure no matter what anybody's going through, and I'm sure you know this, again, no matter what illness, injury, tragedy, trauma, or even just, a tough, challenging time in life, we need that support system. We need a few people who are there for us unconditionally. Doesn't mean
Right.
they agree with everything we do, but they will love us and not abandon us. And they'll be honest enough to tell us when we're hurting ourselves. And when we have those unconditional people in that support system, it's much easier to heal and it's a much smoother process. So just having support for whatever you're going through is so important, and making sure you have socialization in your life, because that is a key component of happiness. So you want that as well.
I'm glad you said that way. Um, a key component of happiness. Socialization is a key component of happiness.
Yes.
That people don't realize that. There are people who are loners and they think, oh well, I just like being alone. Yeah, but God didn't make you like that. I mean, technically speaking. You prefer to be alone, but most everybody wants to be around other people in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's virtually or however it is. We all would rather be with other people for the most part. Most of us.
Well, you know what? Even if someone's introverted and they're
Hmm.
more of a loner, like you said, I'm an extrovert. I think I'm more like you. I love being around people. My whole career is about people, teaching,
Right.
being out there, speaking. But an introvert might have a different definition of how they want to spend their time with people. So maybe as an extrovert, you have a group of friends that's larger, and an introvert might just have a close group of friends.
Right.
And an extrovert might want to go to the mall and to a party and be out, where an introvert just wants to go out to dinner or have people over or go to a movie. But everybody does need support. Doesn't matter if you're an
Right.
introvert or an extrovert, and it doesn't matter if the support system is friends or family or coworkers or neighbors. We all do need it. So it's just how you get it, and how many people, that's different for everybody, but we all do at least need one or two people who are there for us to support us.
Point. Very, 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 very good point. It's very important that people understand that. This we live in a very social world,
Right.
very social world. I remember when 20 years ago, I never would have thought that I could sit on my computer and talk to as many people as I want to at
Right.
one time. you know,
Right. And be in totally different states, right? You're in Florida,
right?
I'm in New Jersey. I know. It's
States,
crazy.
countries, whatever. It's absolutely amazing. You
Yes.
know, it helps us. I love the fact that we're able to do that because it helps me learn about other places, other
Yep.
cultures, and other people. And I think that that's a wonderful thing because I'm not a big traveler, but I still learn. And it's
Absolutely.
because of the interactions, and all that stuff. But I know that you are a traveler. You're all over the place doing workshops and seminars. So
Yes.
tell me about that.
Most of my work is all on the East Coast. I do a lot of workshops in the New York City tri-state area. all the way up through to Florida, which I wish I was there now because it's freezing here. So please, I need to go to Florida very soon, but I do. I do some work in January and February in the Florida area, but the rest is, pretty much on the East Coast, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, these areas, because
Okay.
that's where I'm centrally located.
Okay.
But I do travel even further than that, and I have, but the norm is this area.
Okay. If someone wanted to book you for a workshop,
Mhm.
how would they go about doing that?
Well, they could go onto my website, which is dlcounseling.com, and that will give them information about what I do and my schedule of events that are open to the public. I do a lot of private events, so those won't be up there because corporate events aren't open. Or they can email me at dlcounseling2014@gmail.com.
Okay. Okay. Can we find you on social media?
Absolutely. I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm on Twitter. So you can find it under Diane Lang.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's easy. That's very that is very
Or
easy.
just go to my website and the links are on there. So that's even
Okay.
it's
That's
dlcounseling.com, and my email's on there, my links are on there, and you can find me anyplace.
okay. Very good. Very good. Now, I have to say, every time I talk to you, I'm amazed at just what you do and how easy it seems for you. You're a very easygoing person. You're very easy to talk to,
Oh,
and
thank you.
you're welcome. I think that this is going to be one of those shows that people are going to come away realizing after they've watched it that they've learned something and they didn't feel like they were being taught. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. That being said, I want to thank you for being a purely positive person and thank you for joining us today. And next time, we'll have another purely positive person and we'll be talking with you soon.
Thank you so much for having me.